Hello, everybody. Hello. We are going to dive into expectation hangovers today. I don't know if you've ever heard the concept or if you've experienced what I am talking about, but I'm going to break it down and really help you build an understanding around what you can stop expecting from other people. But I thought first I would actually go into breaking down two different words because it's really going to be a shift a lot of the times from expectations to acceptance. Okay. And we're not always the best at that. Okay. So, first and foremost, to expect is to regard something as likely to happen. To regard something as likely to happen, to believe that someone or something will arrive at a certain time. What else do we got here? To look for something from someone as rightfully due in a certain circumstance of some kind, to require a fulfillment of something, or firm. So to indicate that you're supposing something without firm evidence or knowledge. So we've heard the phrase to be expecting a lot of the times around pregnancy, right? But this could relate to expecting for your offer on that home to go through, expecting for that friend to keep their commitment to the plans that they made with you, expecting your trip to go as you planned it to go. All of those things, we set up expectations. We assume these things are going to happen, right? So we're up here. We're like, yes, it's happening. I'm so excited because it's on my calendar. It's legit. And then all of a sudden something changes and we get dropped. That's what it can feel like, right? Now we're going through this hangover of like, oh, like what does it all mean, right? And now what? So that's expectation, okay? Now, when I shift to acceptance or to accept, here is what this means. And listen clearly for the difference. To give an affirmative answer, okay? So an offer has been made. There's been an acceptance of this, right? To say yes to a proposal of some kind, to receive as adequate, valid, suitable, regard favorably or with approval, to believe or come to recognize an opinion or an explanation as valid or correct, to acknowledge, to submit to, you just accept, okay? So with that, to give you some context here. So for example, let's say that you keep expecting a person to show up the way that you would, or to respond to different situations the way that you would, and they constantly are not meeting these expectations that maybe you have, not only for yourself, but for other people, okay? And at some point, to get back to a state of peace, to get back to a state of balance, one is recognizing that we can't control anybody, and two would be, I'm going to accept that they are going to show up in a way and in a manner that feels right to them. Okay. And that's not always going to be in agreement with what I expect. And so what I can do is that I can accept that they have a tendency to show up in this way. So I'm not going to allow myself to expect more of them. Okay. Until they give me reason not to. With me? So with that, if you can make the shift from expectation to acceptance, you can let a lot of people off the hook, and you can really live with a greater sense of peace and contentment in the midst of some unknowns and some uncertainties, okay? So today we're going to talk specifically as it relates to expectation hangovers and how to avoid them with people. So what I'm going to say is, here is essentially things that you can stop expecting from other people so that you don't keep having to experience these expectation hangovers where you've got to recover from some sort of disappointment, discouragement, letdown of some kind, okay? So the first one is stop expecting people to read your mind. It is on you to communicate your feelings, okay? Have you been there? So a lot of times we are expecting people to go the extra mile, to do us a favor, to surprise us with something, to take us on a date, to keep their commitments, to be considerate or kind to a degree that maybe we would be willing to go to, right? Like, we're expecting people to know when we are having a not so fun day. We're expecting people to know how to help us out with something, or to take some of the weight or some of the extra responsibilities off our plate. We're expecting people to know how to encourage us or build us up, or know when to reach out because we're feeling lower than normal. Like, we put these expectations onto other people, and we don't often pull back and recognize, wow, like, I never communicated that I would like them to do that, or it would be nice if they could do that. I never even asked if they could help me with that. They have no clue where I'm at, what I'm going through. And I actually haven't been that good communicating and expressing myself, right? I'm, for example, posting one thing on social media, but I'm showing up and living my life behind the scenes totally different. Or I am leading these people and coming across like I have it all together, yet I want more collaboration, or I want more community, or I want more engagement, but I'm not even modeling that. Okay. Or I'm expecting the environment, the status quo of this relationship, whether that's with a partner, whether that's with a family member, whether that's with a coworker or a boss. I'm expecting that to shift, but I'm not communicating what's rubbing me the wrong way. I'm not communicating what I need. I'm not communicating the workload that I'm dealing with. Like, I'm not communicating what's going on for me, and I'm just expecting them to get it. I'm expecting them to just like, look at how hard that I'm working, and you should, right? There's a sense of entitlement. Like, you should understand that it would be great if you would like grab me dinner, or it'd be great if you would come and spend time with me, versus like, after my hard day, me coming to visit you, right? Like, we come up with some really interesting things in our minds, but if we actually took a second, if we're frustrated, if we're overwhelmed, that often is a sign that something needs to change. But we can't just assume that people are going to get that, because sometimes we don't even know. And unless we're doing the actual work of understanding ourselves and processing our own feelings, and really being aware of what we're thinking about and what we're speaking, right? And how we're communicating or how we're showing up, we really can't expect other people to get it. We just can't. So we can't expect people to read our minds. That's the first one. All right. So just sort of go through your mind and picture, have there been times, or does this happen often, where you are expecting people to read your mind and show up for you in some certain kind of way? And if they don't do it, you're getting upset, right? You're putting this pressure on them. You're putting this obligation on them. You're putting this demand on them, right? Without even communicating it. And then you're resentful, or you're sort of not nagging, but demanding. It's just heavy, right? And even if you don't communicate that, whoever you're in relationship with can feel it. So just think about that one, and think about, is it really the other person, or do you need to pivot? Because sometimes the problem is us, okay? We give ourselves unnecessary hangovers. All right, the next one is, stop expecting new results from old repeated behaviors, okay? So this is interesting, because I, as a woman of faith, I do believe that with God, people can absolutely change. But if this person is cold-hearted, if this person is unwilling to change, if this person does not have a relationship with God, if this person is not demonstrating humility, accountability, responsibility, transparency, like if there are just a lot of things that have built up that are really these like old repeated patterns that you keep hoping are going to change but are not changing, and it's been some sort of amount of time that's significant, I'm not talking like 2 weeks, right? Then I would say the dynamic of whatever that relationship is needs to change. Okay. So that would mean removing yourself gradually from participating to the same degree that you did before. So if you were really tight and close with somebody and you were the person that would keep letting them give you empty promises or would keep letting them communicate a message to you or keep giving them the benefit of the doubt, all the while they keep showing up and they're not putting in work, they're not being accountable, they're not being responsible, they're not humble, they're not considering you and the dynamics of what's happening, they're not responsible for the dynamic or what they're contributing to the relationship, then that's got to give, because nobody can exist in a one-sided relationship, okay? And I don't know the dynamic of what you may or may not be in. I'm just giving you that context. So I will say that there absolutely is hope if this person is connected with God. With God, nothing is impossible, okay? But there are some scenarios or situations that are very toxic and unhealthy, and it's really important to be able to identify the difference. Wisdom, discernment, huge, 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 huge. But I would also say this goes with you too, right? Like, stop expecting new results from old patterns, from old habits, from old behaviors, okay? So I see this a lot, especially when people are starting new projects or jumping into new ventures or whatever it might be. There's so much excitement. There's that like amped feeling at the very beginning, but when the feeling subsides, then you're on discipline a lot of the time, because you're not always going to feel that same peak of energy. You're not always going to feel that. Can you activate it? Yes. But not everybody is trained in activating that. And even on your best day, you might not always get to that same level. So in that interim, you're going to need self-discipline. You're going to need self-control. You're going to need more than motivation, right? There needs to be a commitment, okay? And you cannot expect new to happen overnight. It just does not happen that way, right? So whether it's a workout program and you put in work, you're like, oh my goodness, I'm so sore. I can't feel my legs. I can't go up and down the stairs. Like, I can't lift my arms, whatever it is, right? Give it 3 days, right? Like, if you haven't been working out, anything is going to feel rough, right? Drink your water, get some supplements if you need to, eat really clean and good, get your sleep, right? There's things that you can do to help your body adjust to this new challenge that you're taking it through. But to just say, oh, it's too painful, it's not even worth it, that doesn't make sense to me at all, right? So that's an example. Another example could be, okay, give yourself a timeline if that motivates you. So for example, if you go to school for 4 years, at least for a business, right? Are you going to give it at least 4 years, or are you going to give it 6 months? 6 months isn't even enough runway to learn what the heck you're doing, right? In context, just as an example. So stop expecting this new behavior, these new results, if you are not feeding yourself with something new. So you can't expect a new perspective if you keep feeding your mind the old negative thoughts, the old limiting beliefs. You're not going to get a new outcome. You're not going to show up different. You can't keep expecting new behaviors if you still have the same self-concept or the same identity and belief about yourself, right? You're not going to produce something different. If you believe that you are unworthy, if you believe that you're not enough, you're going to show up like that, right? And that's not going to garner the honor and the respect, right, that you deserve. So just keep those things in mind, whether it's with yourself or with other people. Sometimes we're not actually measuring the effort or the hard work that we're putting in, right? You might hear, well, I'm doing all the things, right? Like, if you've ever coached or mentored somebody, you might hear that. Okay, but let's break that down. What are all the things, and how much of those things are you doing every day? Right? I promise you, if you do certain things every day, you absolutely will get feedback and different results. And you'll have a sense of what is the rhythm, or how much effort do you need to put in? How many hours do you need to devote to this? You'll start to identify what that is, but you will never find that if you're not doing consistent work towards a goal. Okay. All right. Next one. Stop expecting people who aren't even connected with themselves to be present for you. This is one of those mic drop moments. Stop expecting people who aren't even connected with themselves to be present for you. This is huge, okay? And I see this a lot, particularly with people pleasers, with intellectuals, with spiritual seekers. There is this, you can feel connected with somebody, and you can have these great experiences, and you can assume that because you have that in those moments, that this person is deeply connected to themselves and present, and they show up like you because you're looking at them through your point of view, which is one point of view, right? And they're looking at you from a different point of view as well, right? And only we know how connected to ourselves we actually are. Okay. And usually when you're connected to yourself, you can recognize if somebody is or is not. Okay. Because there's just things that you do and don't do when you're connected to yourself. Right. So an example that I have of this is I can tell a distinct difference when I have quiet time and I'm spending time with God, and I can tell a distinct difference when I am not doing that. This is how it breaks out. When I'm spending time with God, no matter what is coming up throughout my day, right? Distractions, circumstances, whatever, right? I am showing up to those differently, right? Like I'm more aware of not letting things steal my peace. I'm more aware of hanging on to my joy. I'm more aware of praising and praying and thanking God and inviting God into situations. I'm more aware of being content and being focused and secure and bold and courageous, right? Now, when I'm not doing that, when I'm putting that on the back burner and not devoting the same amount of time to spending with God, I feel moments of insecurity. I have self-doubt come up. I hear fears louder. I feel more irritable or easily frustrated. I feel unclear, like there's some like confusion or fogginess or lack of clarity. I feel moody and I can give into negativity, or I can just like push and lean on my own understanding and just try to go into like go mode and just like figure things out, which is intense. And that's not always fun for people that are around me either. So there's a distinct difference between when I'm actually like tuned in, tapped in, like turned on, like focused or aligned is the best way I can say that, and times when I'm not. Okay. I'm not going to say either is good, bad, right, or wrong, but you can really tell for yourself if you practice this when you are connected and present and in the moment and not freaking out about the past or not future tripping. You're just here and you're engaged and you're trusting and you're surrendered and you're walking humbly, right? Like it's just a different flow than when you're like freaking out and forcing and just like a hot freaking mess, right? So you cannot expect somebody who is not doing work on themselves, who is not connected with themselves, meaning they're not secure in their identity. Maybe they're not fulfilled in a purpose, or they might not even know what it is. They're not taking care of themselves, right? So they're not eating right. They're not sleeping. They get sick easily because they're not taking care of their body. They're not taking care of their body in general, right? Working out, the things that we need to do to stay healthy, right? They might be filling their mind with garbage and all the news content. So they literally are running on empty, and looking to that person and expecting them to be able to give you anything to fill you up ain't gonna work. So we need to stop expecting people who aren't even present and connecting with themselves to be present and connected with you. If they are, they probably only get like little short bursts because that's all they'll give themselves. So if you are looking, particularly in a partnership, for real connection, pay attention to that, because that's not just something that changes overnight. And just getting married to somebody isn't something that fixes that situation. You're just going to see it more, right? So that is a huge, huge one, and it requires a lot of discernment for sure. All right. Don't expect others to just do good things to you because you do good things. So essentially, do good things without expecting anything back. This is where we can really get an expectation hangover. Is sometimes if you're not checking your motives, you are actually doing something because you're hoping that you're going to get some kind of return, which is controlling, which is manipulative, which is not going to work because it's not the right energy. It's not from a position of love. It's from a position of control. And nobody likes that. If you've ever had somebody try to control you, you probably feel like rebelling. or running away or distancing yourself. It's just not something that we like, right? We can feel the difference. Even though we might not clearly know what's going on, we can feel something is not right. So do good things without expecting anything back. Just practicing this nature of being good. And when you're inspired to give, right? And just trust that there's something supernatural and greater connected to that. So when we give, right, God is no problem making sure that we're blessed to be a blessing. So really staying in the rhythm of being blessed and being a blessing, there's always ways that blessing comes back to you. So if God can get it through you, he can make sure to get it to you. Okay. So I don't know if you've ever seen that before, but I might sow into somebody's life, and then sure enough, I see that amount come back to me somehow, literally. So it's pretty neat how that happens. So I challenge you to think about that. But be in the habit and practice of not expecting others just to be good to you because you're good to them. It's not, we really shouldn't operate in a position of like, well, I did this, so now you owe me. With me? Okay. Da-na-na. Yeah, because that just keeps you in like a really awkward space, and that ain't fun. All right. Stop expecting people to fit your idea of who they are. Stop expecting people to fit your idea of who they are. So I've talked about this before, but we kind of have our self-concept, who we think we are. We have the way we show up in the world, right? And we also have our perception of other people in our world. So that's a lot of layers, right? And then anybody else is the same thing. They have their concept of who they think they are. They actually have how they show up and how they want to be perceived. And then they have their concept of who they think we are, right? So we're working with layered selves, right? And if that person is wearing all these different masks, it can get tricky. So here's the thing. We really cannot expect people to show up in the idea or the vision that we have for them. Now, I do believe in what the word says when it's calling forth those things that are, right? Even if they're not, right? So those things that are not right now, we still call forth the things that are, right? We partner with what we believe, or we see the gold in people, because what people don't need, they don't need people talking down to them or telling them what they already know. But what they need to be reminded of is the greatness that they have inside of them. So we can still call that out, but we can't expect people to fit our idea of them, because if we're doing that, we're actually not loving and accepting them as they are. We're making them a project. Okay? Or we look at them as something that needs to be fixed, and we're the ones that can guide them to do that, right? When we're not the authority in their life, they are. So it's really important to have this fine walk. And I think for me personally, apart from God, I can't do that, right? Like I can share what's been put on my heart out of a motive of love. Kind of that, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all, right? And like, don't put this unnecessary pressure on somebody to be somebody that you think they should be. You're not God, right? Like, accept them and love them where they're at. And then, yes, be a light, like remind them and call forth their greatness, but you can't hang on to that and grip that and then beat them up for not being that. With me? Okay. So that will clear up a lot of wasted time and energy if you follow that one. Stop expecting success without having put the work in. So this one is sort of similar to before. I actually had a gal on Instagram, because I'm one of those people that is active in my comments, or if somebody sends a message, it's actually me responding and getting in touch. And so I responded to her because she read one of the posts that I wrote, and she responded, and she even used words or highlighted things that I didn't even express in that post, which I thought was interesting. So you never know, like, whatever people perceive, it's them. It's about them. It's not about you, right? So I'm aware of that. And so she wrote this post, and one of her points was that, well, I would work out, but I just feel pain all the time. And people say that that's normal, but it's not normal. And I just don't think that it's worth it. Excuse me. So I responded And I don't know who this woman is. So I said, I don't know who you are. I don't know the workouts that you're doing or how you're training or the pain that you're experiencing. And I can say that if you have intense pain, which just sounded like the kind that she was highlighting, every day, then absolutely that's not okay. But I wasn't talking about pain in this post. What I was saying is that anything that is worthwhile, anything that you are pursuing and eventually manifest or achieve or see come to fruition, it doesn't come easily, right? And a lot of times that's where a lot of discouragement and disappointment can set in, because people have this grand vision and this really great idea, and they put efforts, which is not always consistent or measurable, in to whatever that thing is, maybe for a week, right? And they're expecting some sort of big result. And the minute they're not getting that, then all of a sudden, I must not have heard God. This must not be for me. All of that, when really it takes work. And sometimes hard work is just showing up every day. Sometimes hard work is just doing the assignment. Sometimes hard work is just clocking in. Sometimes hard work is moving your body. Sometimes hard work is eating food that fuels your body versus that just tastes good, right? Like, we get to choose what it is that is worth it at the end of the day. And that's what I highlighted to her. We can choose that. And I know as an athlete, workouts never felt easy, and they never were particularly like painful, but they were hard. Like there's those workouts, if you've trained before, like whether for me, it's been like gymnastics and running, there's times where you are super sore, right? There's times where you just want to throw up, but that's not an everyday workout, right? But every day you should be doing something that challenges you. In every breakthrough, whether it's financial, whether it's relational, whether it's personal, whether it's spiritual, it's come from some sort of sacrifice. So that's what I was highlighting. So it was just really interesting to me, but that essentially is the point. You cannot expect results, outcomes, positive change if you are not putting in the work that will equal that. With me? So like, for example, you cannot expect to show up as a cool, calm, collected version of yourself if all you're practicing every day is worry, fear, doubt, insecurity, unworthiness. See what I'm saying? Like, that is what you are sowing. So you're going to reap that also. So in order for a shift, you've got to stop, face what you're walking through, start putting in the work, start making declarations, start affirming new things, work with the therapist, right? Invest in your spiritual life, invest in time with God. Like, there are things that you can do that are going to seem hard because you've not done it before. It's going to feel like it doesn't come easy. Sometimes there's going to be days where you're like, did that even help? I don't even know, right? But if you show up, you start to see in time, it adds up. But a lot of people aren't doing that. So it's really, really interesting. But you can't expect to get results if you're not putting in the work. That is really, really huge. You can't expect other people to invest in you if you're not doing the work, right? Because to somebody who's doing the work, they can smell who's not doing the work. And why would they invest in you, right? Why would they want you to collaborate with them on a project? Why would they invest in your work if they know you're not showing up? They might mentor you, right? But why would they invest if you're not somebody that is demonstrating the work ethic, the thoughts, the mindset, the attitudes, right? Like, why? Think about that, okay? All right. Expectation leads to let down. All right. When we expect something to be true and it's not a sure thing, there is a margin of error there, right? Like there's a percentage that might not happen. And so rather than gripping it and holding that as truth, stand on what you know to be true and really start speaking to yourself differently. This will be great if this happens, but I'm all open to something better. That's what I love to say. This or something better. So like, I'm not going to grip this as like the only way that this can happen. I'm going to be open to if God has a better way of this evolving that I'm not even thinking of. So if the change, I'm going to trust that I am partnered with a good God and he works all things for my good. and then he's got something better coming. So if there's been a delay, if there's been a plan that changed, if something happened, I need to shift my focus. Right? And then I'm not tripping. Then I'm not having a temper tantrum and acting like a 5-year-old, right? Then I can weather things quite different and really use my energy effectively and steward things well that I've been given without going into these deep pits of discouragement and depression and taking them out on other people, right? So message on today is less expecting, more accepting. So for example, if I go through these again, stop expecting people to read your mind. Instead of expecting that they're going to read my mind, I accept they can't read my mind. So here's what I'm going to do to communicate myself effectively. With me? Or the next one, stop expecting new results from old repeated behaviors. So I accept that unless I change, right, my mindset, my beliefs, my habits, my behaviors, I'm not going to get new results. And I also accept that about other people. If they are not changing these things, I accept that they're not willing to change. They're not ready. And I'm not going to expect them to, because I'm not their mom or their parent, right? Stop expecting people who aren't even connected with themselves to be present for you. I accept that when I'm not connected, I'm not giving my best. And I'm not fully present. I'm not fully engaged. I'm not like a good human, right? Like I'm not coming from my most pure place when I'm like that. So I'm not going to expect other people when I can tell that they're tired or they're burnt out or they're having a rough day. I'm not going to put a demand on them to show up and encourage me or just pour into me in some kind of way. Like I'm going to accept where they're at and love them where they're at without trying to pull on them. Do good things without expecting anything back. So I accept that I can just do good things without needing people to do anything for me, right? I accept that I'm motivated and inspired to do this right now, and I don't need anything back because that's fulfillment enough. With me? Stop expecting people to fit your idea of who they are. I accept people for who they are. Right? I accept myself for who I am. Right? And I can expect things from myself, but I'm going to allow people to be who they are and accept them for who they are and call them higher when opportunities present themselves, but I'm not going to expect them to fit into my idea. I accept that I have to put in the work to get the results that I'm after. There's a way that we do it. Like I don't believe in just works of the flesh and the hustle that the world would say. That's not biblical, right? But everything that we really do, like when we're partnering and when we're co-laboring with God, there's God's part and there's my part. So I'm not going to expect God to show up for me if I'm not doing my work, right? Like if I'm not even spending time with God, fellowshipping with God, available to hear the voice of God, taking steps of obedience, right? Like if I'm not doing the things, I'm not going to expect God to show up in brilliant ways. I can expect God to love me, but I'm not going to expect him to show up in these brilliant ways, right? Because a lot of the promises and a lot of prophetic words are actually conditional. There's a part that we show up and do, not to earn anything, but there's a part that we participate in to allow that to come to pass. Okay. I accept that my expecting of others leads to letdown, right? Like I accept that if I have an expectation, there's a chance that I could be let down. So I'm going to accept that this could evolve this way or something better. Okay. So less expecting, more accepting. All right. So I hope this message blessed you. I know that this is one that took me a long time to get. And it's not the most fun journey when you don't get this. Like what that can look like is you keep having this expectation for this person to show up some kind of way or to make plans or to keep plans and they keep failing in your eyes, right? And that's super disappointing, super frustrating. And then you start to label and judge them, right? Or you keep expecting some sort of breakthrough at the office and you keep expecting and you just can't be content and you just can't be happy. And you keep watching things get further and further away from that expectation. And now you're just like super negative and taking that out in angsty ways, right? Or you keep expecting that some person is going to surprise you or do something, and time keeps going by and that's not happening. And now you're just like frustrated. And then you go into this place, was it ever going to happen? Or that was so dumb of me to even think that was going to happen, right? And you're wasting all this cray energy on what, right? Like, is that life? Like, in every moment we get to choose life or death. We get to choose, right? And the word is clear, choose life, like choose life. And a lot of times we're putting up expectations, we're missing it. We're missing it because all we're saying is basically, I can't be content until this happens. When the work is, I am content. And if that happens, that's great. And if it doesn't, I know something better is going to happen. So then you can go through without attachment to outcomes. And yes, I get it. Like there's timelines, there's deadlines, but even your approach to that can be, I'm doing the best that I can. I'm trusting that that's enough, because all of this extra workload, all of this future tripping, all this expectations, it's just leaving me in a place of being hungover. And if you've ever been hungover, you just want to lay in your bed all day. You might actually get sick. You just want to eat some really crappy food, right? You just want to like binge watch TV. You just want to do all these unhealthy things to yourself, right? And if you sustain patterns like that for a long period of time, you cannot expect yourself to function optimally, and you can't expect that people are going to really enjoy being around you either, right? So hopefully this has been helpful. I really encourage you to remember that the joy of the Lord is your strength. And that's not a cute word. It literally is your power. And it actually means that there's going to be storms that come in life. There's going to be people that disappoint us. There's going to be things that happen that like knock the wind out of you. But you can choose to be immovable. You can choose to be content, whether you're abased or abounding, the word says. You can choose joy. You can choose to praise the Lord in all things, not for all things, but in all things. You can choose life. You can choose how you're going to show up. You just got to decide what's worth it to you. Do you want more experiences of like building yourself up a tier and putting all these expectations on things that you can't control and then getting dropped? Like, does that sound fun to you? Or do you want to do the best that you can, do the work that you're inspired to do, keep moving forward, and be open to God doing exceedingly abundantly above and beyond all you dare ask, think, or imagine? That can never happen if you are the one gripping and controlling and declaring how things are going to happen in your own understanding and control. It doesn't happen that way. Okay, so this could be a message for somebody that you know. This could be a beautiful reminder to you. But my encouragement is that you do this work so that you can have a completely different life experience and you can keep your joy. All right, and you can be strong in and through any season. So if this message blessed you, make sure you subscribe to this channel so that you can be the first to know when any new video comes out. You can copy the link and share it with a friend. You can also tune into the Spirit-Filled Real Talk podcast. Every Saturday, new episodes are released, so you can check that out wherever you get your podcasts. And then you can also go check out